Tampa, Florida, the nation's gizzard. It's the magnificent Lassiter Show, starring the magnificent Lassiter. Featuring the nimble fingers of Michael Serio at the control board, the second most respected newsman, Don Richards, and the world's most dangerous traffic reporter, Gary McHenry. And now, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Lassiter.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Announcer. 8.5 minutes after 3. Whoa! What's the matter with motor mouth in there? Good grief. Anyway, 8.5 minutes after the hour of 3 o'clock. It is a Tuesday, June the 6th, 1989. Live, or as live as he possibly can be for someone who lives under a rock most of the time. In studio with me is none other than our weekend warrior, Saving Sam McClellan. Saving Sam, it's been a long time since we've chatted.
Yes, it is, Bob. Yes, it is. I am the weekend warrior. That's true.
What's that, Saturday from...
Saturday from 9 a.m. to noon, Saturday and Sundays. I'm the morning man on the weekends.
Oh, I thought you started one day at 8 o'clock.
We used to. Saturday, we used to start at 8 o'clock. But
so another hour back, right?
Communist
plot?
Berman, yes. No, it was a fishing plot, actually. Captain Mel Berman, they were leaving too much fish in the bay. It was going to be an overstock problem, so they gave him another hour to help people find out how to get those fish.
I see. Well, again, clearly it must have been a communist plot. I understand you have been challenging commies to call you on your show. That's what some of my people report to me. I don't get up that early.
I give out the numbers. They'll give a phone to anybody, in this country. I'm not especially proud of it, Bob, but I have
You're not proud of your show?
No. I'm not proud of this aspect of the show, but I do challenge communists to call. I even once challenged a communist to show up in front of the studio, and I would take the first swing at him, giving him a beautiful piece of publicity. Peace-loving communist comes down to studio, and angry capitalist loses control and punched him in the nose. I said, this would be on front page Pravda, but he didn't show up. They're phonies, most of them. But
the commies never call either.
None that are true communists. Every once in a while somebody tries to pretend. There's a guy named Boris that calls in from St. Pete and then hangs up on me.
Boris from St. Pete?
Boris from St. Pete, right. Then he hangs up. He never holds on too long, and he just hangs up.
Well, how is the state of the world in the view of someone from your particular ilk, if you would?
The state of the world is marvelous. It's a great time to be living right now.
Except if you live in Beijing.
Well, I have likened the incident in Beijing to our Boston massacre, to the massacre of 8 peace-loving Minutemen at the Green at Lexington.
Wait a second. Do you mean the guys in Boston only wanted a more democratic communist party, and that's why they threw the tea over?
No. Not the Boston Tea Party, the Boston Massacre.
Oh, Boston
When
Massacre.
The British troops opened fire on some peace-loving Americans who were gathering in the square. There were some scattered reports they were throwing rocks, but that's not true, Bob. All Americans know that's not true.
Those peace-loving citizens, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm sure that you would if you could, those peace-loving citizens were trying to, in essence, overthrow the government.
Yes, they were.
Well, the peace-loving citizens in Tiananmen Square were not.
They were not trying to overthrow the government. In essence, they were trying to liberalize and uncorrupt the
Why do your
fish.
eyes suddenly light up when you say that word?
To liberalize?
Oh, there it goes again.
Well, I'm...
Michael's shading his... Oh, it's terrible.
Well, you see, it is a liberating effect when you lose slavery, and that's basically what communism is. It's just a 20th century form of slavery.
Sam McClellan, did I understand you to say that there are actually ways that the word liberal could be used in a good fashion?
Oh, sure. I make...
Have you changed your ways?
No, not at all. I'm very careful to draw a distinction between liberals and liberalistas, for example. It's just a category of individual that I can segment these people. I can do that. The problem with many liberals and liberalistas is that anybody who is a right-wing conservative is automatically a loony. You see, they call our intellectuals into question. No, I find that intellectuals can be conservative and intellectuals can be liberal.
Why is it?
I can read.
Well,
I can read. But I do think it's exciting times that we live in, and I think you're seeing now the failure of the communist system. It's an early 20th century idea that is dying before we probably get to the year 2000. We're not only going to enter a new decade, a new century, but a new millennium, and I think
isn't it amazing that you're saying that you're also seeing at the same time in another corner of the world, then, the failure of the capitalist system, apparently, in Argentina.
No, I don't see a failure there.
Food riots in the streets, people being killed, that's not a failure?
Argentina? Argentina has Argentina for the first time as El Salvador recently experienced the passage of one democratically elected leader to another democratically elected leader?
So quick, Sam.
Wasn't it Argentina?
No, Argentina just had an election. They're not scheduled to change governments until next December.
Right. Although I do have to say that they selected a Peronist. But, people in a democracy have a right to elect a Jimmy Carter or a Peronist, whatever they want to do.
You would equate Jimmy Carter with Peronist?
No, I'm saying that in a democracy, we don't always approve of who gets elected, but we accept the fact that that person has been elected. It's the will of the people. And
then even 10 years later, still harp on it if a guy was elected that you didn't like.
Yeah, but regularly scheduled elections were posted and held, and the winner has been declared. And I think you'll see it will take place in Argentina, a passage of power constitutionally, and as it has happened in El Salvador. And this is a major milestone. A regularly scheduled election is a big deal for the people in South America. It's a regular thing for us.
Yes, I know for years and years and years, right-wing governments down there also blocked elections. Sure. So it is very, very unusual for them. How you doing with Bushy? Bushy kind of...
President George Bush? President Bush is doing a marvelous job, I think. I've got some criticisms of his administration, but I think he's doing a marvelous job.
What criticisms do you have?
I think that he is failing to use the bully pulpit that, as Teddy Roosevelt called it, the presidency. George Bush seems to be the ultimate insider, seems to be a tag, a moniker that's been handed to him, and it's true. He does all his behind-the-scenes dealing and then comes out with a spectacular thing. He comes out...
What spectacular thing has he come out with?
Well, so far, for example, the NATO speech. Mm-hmm. Weeks prior...
You mean, me too!
Yes,
me too!
No, weeks prior to his going to NATO, I and many other Americans were criticizing him for saying nothing, for letting Gorbachev just lead world opinion around by the nose. Mm-hmm. And yet, George Bush had a plan on along and leapt onto the stage with a done deal. He seems to do this, and I feel that it shows his style is quite different.
What other spectacular thing has he pulled off in the last 5-6 months now?
Spectacular deals?
Yeah.
You mean the end of the Cold War? You want a topper to that? Is that it?
The end of the Cold... Yeah. George Bush ended the Cold War?
Yeah, I think we won. Like he said, perestroika and glasnost.
Mike?
They're Russian words.
The war was over?
Yeah, it's over. It's over, man, and we've won.
Which paper do you subscribe to?
In fact, I think I subscribe to the St. Creaturesburg Times and the Clearwater Moon and the Tampa Tribune.
I could have sworn it was Crazy Mike Gorbachev that put an end to the Cold War.
No. Crazy Mike is a communist, and I think we should be very careful.
Again, it's very similar to when you say liberal.
I mean, Crazy Mike. Here he is, a nice guy. I mean, there's no question. There's no question that he is a different kind of communist than they've ever had. In fact, he's the first Soviet leader to be a world leader, and this is a welcome change. It gets to be infectious, being liked by other countries, and maybe other Soviet leaders who follow him will say, hey, this is kind of nice, being liked by other world leaders, and they won't want to do things that will make them unliked again. So I think he's definitely a different kind of Soviet, but still, in his system, when people want national identities, the troops are, the tanks still go. They're still gassing people. They still do things like that.
You see,
they do that.
There's where I thought that maybe you and I would have a little common ground here. I was yesterday musing on my show, as I sometimes do, about good commies and bad commies. Yeah. And for example, I was musing that, we've got bad commies in Nicaragua that do not make their people have abortions. We apparently have good commies in Beijing who do make their people have abortions. And, George supposedly is very, very unhappy about abortion. But the bad commies in Nicaragua don't buy our military goods. The good commies in Beijing apparently do, which was a real surprise to me, by the way. And we got bad commies in Nicaragua who permit, opposition members, actually in the General Assembly. But we have good commies in China who mow down their own children in the streets. And I would assume that you, like me, I'm very, very disturbed with our beloved President George Bushy Bush for not coming down like a ton of bricks on
No,
me.
not at all. Not at all.
Not
at all, because it's a very complex internal situation, I think, in China.
Wait a second. A
very
butcher's
complex.
a butcher. A murderer's a murderer.
That's right. Communist butchery. It's very refreshing, Bob, to hear your comments about communist butchery.
No. There's nothing inherently wrong about communism. It's unfortunate that sometimes butchers...
Oh, wait a minute. Nothing inherently wrong with slavery, Bob? Communism is slavery. It is inherently wrong.
Sometimes capitalism can be slavery, too,
No,
Sam.
it isn't.
And when communism turns to slavery, it is deplorable, just as it is
when communism turns to slavery.
Just as it is when capitalism turns to slavery. They're both deplorable. However, Sam, am I to understand that you're saying that, business is business? Hey there, Mr. Dung, another airplane maybe, or another bomb?
No.
And so therefore, when a butcher who happens to be a communist, he's not a butcher because he's a communist, when a butcher slays his people in the streets, you can somehow overlook that?
No, you cannot possibly overlook it, and we are not overlooking it. I think we are appealing to the military. I think there is a very complex warlord system that still exists in the Chinese people, that the government cannot rule hundreds of millions of people without the willing acceptance of the people. And I think you are seeing a communist boss with troubles in his own capital. And so what does he do? He goes and finds some general, or maybe he found a colonel, and said, you want to be a general, and I will make you a general if you will go in and shoot up these people, because I cannot get the division
join with me?
who are in Peking to go ahead and shoot these people.
Won't you join with me in denouncing unequivocally the Chinese government?
Oh, sure, I can denounce.
Well, George
I can
didn't.
denounce. Yes, he did. I can denounce.
He did not. He said he deplored the use of violence.
Well, sure.
He didn't say he deplored the fact that the government wasn't answering the students' request.
Well, let's not mention.
As a matter of fact,
denouncing, deploring.
As a matter of fact, 2 weeks ago, Bushy said, hey, students, use some restraint here.
Yes.
But isn't it amazing that the young people in Nicaragua were called to go kill and rape and plunder and pillage? To drive out a guy that allows an opposition party.
No,
but
they were not called to rape and plunder and pillage. Not at all. In fact, the average age of if you're talking about the Contras, the average age of the Contras is 18 years old, and so I don't think they're raping and plundering and pillaging. I think that what you are seeing is military targets were the principal object of the strategy of the Contras.
Were these 18-year-olds the same ones who had those toys and instructions for assassination and general anarchy dropped on them?
Yeah, that's an excess of the CIA. I have to admit, the CIA has some operatives in the field that aren't they get a little out of hand. And,
did George Bush ever belong to the CIA?
Oh, he used to run the CIA. That's why he's such an insider. We couldn't have possibly had a better president at this time of our history than a man who was the former ambassador to China, ambassador to the UN, and director of the CIA.
A guy that knows how to drop instructions on how to assassinate people.
Oh, come on. Don't you think that some of those Chinese students were CIA operatives? Don't you think we knew exactly what was going on in the square? How'd they come up with these? They had Xerox machines, for crying out loud, it seemed. I mean, these kids were in touch with the United States government. I'm sure of it.
So wait a second. You're telling me that the United States government, through the CIA, probably set all of this up, encouraged it, and now that they're getting butchered in the streets, the best we can do is call off a few official visits and threaten to raise their interest rates?
Bob, I might be a big backer of the CIA and willing to accuse them of their errors, but I'm not going to give them that much credit that they could launch 1 million students. That was a legitimate uprising. That was a desire for democracy that will always come. But I don't want to say that it's a done deal either. Communism has experienced these uprisings, and then they have crushed them. Now, you cannot keep the people down forever, but you could keep one generation down. The people in Czechoslovakia and in Hungary back in the 50s, they were crushed. Now you might say, well, they're enjoying some greater measures of freedom now because of perestroika and glasnost. Yes, that's true, but not that generation. They were finished. I mean, people will be free.
22 minutes after the hour of 3 o'clock. That's a lovely piece of Capitol Monte you have there next to your horn.
Why, thank you.
And those cubic zirconia earrings are just darling.
There's only 10 left. Call right now.
Saving Sam McClellan, my guest. Let me give out the telephone numbers. Virtually anything that might be a Sam Lassiter type issue, or if perhaps you live under a rock too. And 990-9352 in Hillsborough, 990-WFLA, 461-9352 in Pinellas. Now, let me explain something for those of you who are in support of Sam. I know that you guys speak out of both sides of your mouth, but you only need call one number. These are not stereo phone numbers. Now, there's one number for Pinellas at 461-9352. I guess that would probably be for those of you who speak out of the right. And in Hillsborough, hotbed of communism, of course. Oh, wait a second. I give out the Hillsborough number. Look them up. 27 minutes after the hour of 3 o'clock. Yeah, it was full of me, too, Mike. I understand. Let's see. We will go to the telephones, and the 2 lines ringing there. Okay, there's 1 line available. It's in Hillsborough. That's the place with the big, tall buildings and all the communists. 990-9352. 990...
All the communists. There aren't any communists. They're too chicken to call. They are. A true communist would take an opportunity.
Are you trying to base them, Sam?
Yeah, I know they call me. I know they listen to me, but they really don't
listen to you.
Yeah.
Well, the Pinellas County Communist Party listens to you.
Yeah. How about those? The only people who
Where does the Pinellas County Communist Party meet?
Hey, I used to know. Honest to gosh, I used to know. This guy was a member of the what's the name of it? I don't know. Some kind of the Socialist Workers Party or something like that. And he always used to volunteer his time for Democratic campaigns.
Wait, how could a communist possibly afford a radio to listen to you on?
Well, it's very simple. The state gave him one. You know.
Oh, the state gave him one.
That's right. He put in a chit, and eventually he got one.
Where does the state pass out the radio?
Well, yeah. They have this embassy
you also get FM
in Washington, D.C. I'm talking about their state, you know.
And
they probably
their
have
state.
They probably have extra radio.
Well, anybody who could afford to go up to Washington and come back to get a free radio could probably, have gone over to theirs or something.
That's right. Yeah, there may be some fishing boats out in the Gulf of Mexico that look suspicious.
Whoa, you're not accusing Captain Mel now.
Hey, no. No, Captain Mel is a free fisherman.
A free
fisherman, right.
Palma Sia. Hi, Sia. You're on the air at 970 WFLA with Saving Sam.
Good afternoon. But would it be proper for me to ask Sam a question?
Well, I don't know.
Oh, my goodness. Is this
proper?
This is the same. I recognize this voice. This is the person that belittled the power of prayer on Sunday when I suggested we might pray for the parents of those children.
I prayed for a bicycle, never got the damn thing, so obviously there's something wrong with the whole theory.
No, you got your answer. No bike. No bike, Jerry.
May I ask you a question, Sam?
Yeah, right.
Sunday morning, you ridiculed one of your callers, I believe it was TJ, for suggesting that we cut off arms sales to China because of the goings-on in Tiananmen Square.
No.
And then that was Sunday morning.
No,
hey, let me finish the question.
All right, you may finish the question, but I'm issuing my right to reclaim the ground.
Then on Monday, Bushy turned around and said, hey, we're cutting off arms sales to China. Now, what I want to know from you is, how are you going to do an about-face between now and Saturday without looking like a total idiot?
You mean it's possible that TJ is actually George Bush in a dress?
Anything is conceivable, but I don't think TJ is George Bush in a dress. She's far too firm and, far too courageous to be George Bush.
No. Well, first of all, as usual, you're not listening. You've got wax in your ears because I
had it removed by a very good ear man.
I do not have to do an about-face on that whatsoever.
You're doing it already.
No, sir. No, sir. I tell you what, if you have a tape of that show, all you have to
I'll bet you Carolyn does.
You transcribe, that coward. Let me tell you, if you have a tape of that show, you transcribe that tape and send it here, and I will eat the tape. I've done this many times, and no one has ever taken me up on it.
Sam.
What I did was I ridiculed TJ.
Sam.
I did, in fact.
You're raving again, Sam.
I did, in fact, ridicule TJ.
Sam, do you really have TMS? I've been wondering about that for a long time. It's showing it, Sam.
No, it's so...
You're getting upset, Sam.
Don't
get upset.
It just so happens
Sam, calm down. How are you going to do this magnificent about-face? That's what I want to know.
You are continually to interrupt. You said, I told you I was going to object to the premise of your question. You refused to allow me to object to the premise of your question.
You're running on again.
You asked me to permit you to go on. I permitted you to go on, but you, sir, do not believe in free speech.
Bob, can you get him shut up for a minute?
Wait a second. I want to come into this. Sam, did you receive a call from TJ last Sunday?
Absolutely, and right on time. During the hours of 9 to 12.
Did TJ suggest that military sales to China be suspended?
Suspended, yes.
Did you concur with that?
Yes.
She ridiculed her. Thought it was the funniest thing you'd ever heard.
How is it possible that a lucid man, a good, decent, lucid man, who probably calls Lionel's show too often, but that's the only thing I could possibly object to, how is it possible that a good, decent, lucid man heard you say otherwise?
Because he wasn't really listening. I'll tell you what it was. I did ridicule TJ, in fact, for trying to turn a tragedy such as what occurred at Tiananmen Square,
half the truth is coming out,
into a diatribe, and that was the word I used, into another diatribe against the Bush administration, that she was constantly turning our attention away from Beijing and towards Washington, which I thought was a tragic and stupid and ridiculous thing to do, and that's why I ridicule it. But at the same time, I did agree, when we concluded the call, and you've got your tapes, when we concluded the call, if you've got your tapes, when we concluded the call,
have you checked your Haldol levels lately?
Once again, I submit my claim that this man is still not listening to this day, and that is why he does not know what I said on that day.
How do we know you're not lying right now? I mean, you're an acknowledged liar. You've already told us you'd lie. How do we know you're not lying?
Transcribe the tape. Send it to me. I will eat the tape. The cassette box, the cassette tape, the transcript, and everything else.
Are you an acknowledged liar?
Am I an acknowledged liar? No. I have said...
You wouldn't be lying about that now.
No, that is true. What I have said is that I declared war on... This is what these guys are dealing with. I declared war on Michael Dukakis, which said I would be willing to lie about him, but I didn't have to. The truth was damaging enough.
Tampa, you're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Hello, Sam?
Yes, I'm here.
They probably got those radios when I dropped them out of the back of my C-130 over Laos and Cambodia and all that. Freebies, thousands of them years ago.
Okay.
They're probably still running. But hey, isn't it ironic that our elected representatives in Washington, on both sides of the aisle, the Chinese students, Chinese dignitaries around the world, other world leaders, have praised the actions and the words of Wishiboo and Jesse Helms last night on CNN agreed with what the president's actions were.
Oh, really? I missed that.
And you're in the minority, Bob.
No,
like you always are.
Well, you see, that's one of the problems with you and most of your fellow Americans, is that you assume that the majority is always right, and you're terrified to be in the minority. No. You're absolutely fearful of having a view that somebody else doesn't have.
The minority, the majority won this election and put Bushy-Boo in there,
so
Bobby.
What? That doesn't mean he's right.
Well, with all due respect to the caller, Bob.
Well, no, wait 1 second.
You don't need me to
One second, sir.
Okay.
I would suggest to you that 9 years ago, or was it 13 years ago, the majority of people put Jimmy Carter in the White House.
And they found out they messed up, and they threw him out. They voted him out.
Sir, they may find out. Sir, they may find out the same thing about George Bush. So you're telling me that the majority of people voted for George Bush is hopelessly, totally, completely irrelevant.
No,
I
sir.
still say to you, sir, that the leader of the free world, or the man who claims to be the leader of the free world, who has not wholeheartedly come out in favor of the demands, the requests of those students in Beijing, is a man who I am ashamed of.
You're in the minority. I'm pretty
more
proud
than
of
the
him.
leader of the
You're
free
stand
world.
right, I'm in the minority, sir, because most people are like you.
And
they
I'm
couldn't
pretty
care
proud.
less.
Well, Bob, I would like to correct you. The President of the United States of America is not just the leader of the free world. That's like saying George Bush is the titular head of the Republican Party.
What's the most important thing in life, Sam?
He is. What's
freedom?
the most?
Is freedom the most important thing in life? A man or a woman's freedom?
A man or a woman's freedom.
An inalienable right?
I would say the unalienable rights, yeah. I am an American. I have a creator-based belief system.
Well, then isn't it far more important to support those most important things in life than it is to try to keep some semblance of a business relationship going with thugs and murderers?
If you would prefer, well, I understand what you're saying, Bob, but if what you're saying that you would have preferred more inflammatory rhetoric coming out of the President of the United States of America's mouth, I would say that you are in the majority
Sam,
of that.
I know that
all of us have used more terribly violent descriptions of our feelings about this event than the President has chosen.
Sam, I appreciate that a lot of people listening to this program today listened to a program I did yesterday, and they've already heard this line, although none of them bothered to answer it, so I will address it to you. Don't you think, Sam, that George Bush should use the same kind of rhetoric against a thieving, murdering son of a bitch like Deng Xiaoping as he uses against a 15-year-old girl who tries to end a pregnancy?
I think that the President of the United States of America,
or Jesse Jackson,
is dealing on many levels much more than the public utterances that you hear from the White House.
Wait a second, Sam. A murderer is a murderer, right?
A murderer is a murderer, yes.
And George Bush, of course, would call a teenage girl who tries to end her pregnancy a murderer.
No, he has not.
I beg your pardon, Sam.
No, he has not.
I beg your pardon, Sam. He's called abortion murder.
He has called abortion murder, yes.
So, but Deng Xiaoping is, hey, wait and see here now, because...
let's not dodge the question. Is abortion murder, Bob?
Is abortion murder?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, I wonder sometimes at certain abortions.
Well, you see, Sam, not only do I have views and defend my views, but I also believe in making other people defend theirs.
I agree with that.
And George Bush is the one who has called it murder.
I agree with that.
And, he has no problem whatsoever using the most horrible rhetoric against a Willie Horton, using the most horrible rhetoric against a Michael Dukakis, a Ted Kennedy, a Jesse Jackson, a Jim Wright. But, Deng Xiaoping, our good buddy over there, let's not say anything to offend this murderer.
To defend that murderer?
No, to offend the murderer.
Okay, to offend.
We don't want to offend this guy. I mean, okay, we're going to cut off. We're going to cut off a few visits and raise some interest rates. But outside of that,
yeah, there's a lot of horrible repression that goes on around the world, and that is why the United States of America and our revolution is not over. It is still inspiring people like those Chinese students to risk their life. They knew the life that they enjoyed. They took that life to the streets and risked the violence many times.
And didn't even get lip service out of the leader of the free world.
I think they did, Bob, and I think they're getting a lot more. I think what you're seeing is, again, this is my criticism of George Bush. Too much backstage maneuvering and not enough of the bully pulpit.
Are we talking about some wishful thinking? What backstage maneuvering?
If you're saying
what backstage maneuvering?
The backstage maneuvering, I'm certain we have opened several communications with military leaders.
Well, do they call you at night and let you know what's going on, or is this wishful thinking here? You hope they have opened.
No, it's just the way the man has operated his entire life. We're not talking about a 30-year-old. We're talking about a man who's in his 60s. This man has a lifetime of behavior that we can see, and that's just the way he maneuvers. He maneuvers backstage, and I wish he would come out front more.
It's amazing he didn't maneuver backstage during the campaign. I mean, the American people thought they were getting, a rough and tumble guy here, a guy that we call a spade, a guy that we call a murdering son of a bitch in China, a murdering son of a bitch.
Well, he's...
But that's not apparently what they got, huh?
No, if you want more inflammatory rhetoric, then I think...
Well, that's what the American people wanted. They wanted a guy to put his hand on his heart.
They don't need it.
I pledge allegiance to the flag. They wanted a guy that said, good for the liberals.
I don't.
Why not?
I don't think the people in China and the leaders who are listening are immune from the voices, not just from the American people, from around the world. They have heard the kind of rhetoric that we have used, and that's because we live in an open society. They know the opinion the world has of their actions, and the President of the United States speaks more cautiously.
We're just not that kind of, but the Chinese people are, and so they would have been very, very affected, I believe, by some good harsh rhetoric, and they didn't get any.
The Chinese people right now don't need the President of the United States to egg them on. This is a self-activating revolution. This is not something that we inspired other than with our ideals. It has been inspired as much by the actions of Colonel John Parker at Lexington Green as it has been from George Bush at Lexington Avenue.
One line available, I promise to, let you guys... Whoops, another drop-off. 2 lines available, I promise to let you guys have more access to Sam. And let's see, where is it? Pinellas 46... You snort over there? You have a cold or something?
I always believe in an open access to Sam. I think it's a great notion.
Hey, so do I. 990-9352 would be the number in Hillsborough, which won't do. I get so excited having Sam.
It's the communists in Hillsborough. They stole the S.
A live person in the studio across from me. It's amazing. In Pinellas, 461-9352, 461 WFLA.
Hi, I'm Joe Garagiola. Hey,
something interesting, I swear we'll go to the phone, something interesting you said during the break, something, I don't want to misquote you here about the President of the United States as the leader of the planet.
Boss of the planet. Boss of the planet.
Well, that's a pretty broad statement. Let me see if I can bring it down to something that, we can all understand. Let us suppose that the guys on the other side of the hall on the FM were saying things like, Chairman Maseko, let us not have to read flip cards, but speak freely on the air. And I kicked the door in over there and with a machine gun shot them all down. And Mr. Maseko came up and said, well, this is really deplorable. To show my displeasure, Lassiter, I'm not going to come visit you for a while, and we're going to readjust your rates at the J-Corps credit union. And we may even vote against you at the next programming meeting. and basically went away. I mean, wouldn't that be just absolutely cowardly?
Well, of course, it's a hypothetical, and I love dealing in hypotheticals. Because,
well, I don't know. I'm not too pleased with those people over there on the FM side. A bunch of bozos.
Wait a minute. I am a man of many titles, and one of them is as ambassador to the United States, and that's, you're talking about my friends over there. They bring in, these guys get incredible gifts on the weekends. They get pizzas. They get
that would really be deplorable on the part of our leader, wouldn't it?
Well, sure. Well, of course.
I mean, the least he could do is say, "Pig, pig."
Well, this goes to state of mind, of the defendant, and I'm wondering if Masego would not be, complicitous in this murder. This would be murder if you were to spray machine gun fire over there. In fact, it's illegal. I think even Bush is against automatic weapons. You'd have to use a deer rifle.
Well, no, I beg your pardon. Up to 15 rounds,
right,
in a clip.
That's right.
Anything over that wouldn't be supporting. So I see you wish to duck that question too. Tampa, you're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Hello, Bob.
Hi, Tampa.
Say, I think I have to agree with you on the statement you made there that communism was basically good because this country...
Wait, sir. I said nothing of the kind. I said there's nothing inherently wrong with communism.
Okay, that there's nothing inherently wrong because this country didn't become great until it adopted several of the planks of the Communist Manifesto.
Which ones are those, sir?
Well, the heavy graduated or progressive income tax, that was one of them.
Oh, really?
And the other one was the centralization of all credit by means of a national bank.
Is this Stan the money man calling? I'm not sure.
No.
I don't need the Federal Reserve System.
No, Stan the money man is much older. This guy just has old ideas.
It's sprouting. Okay.
No, and another one is abolition of all the rights of inheritance. They tax the people here so much on their inheritance that you can't pass something.
Do you have more than $600,000?
Pardon?
Do you have more than $600,000?
Well, I don't think it's any of your business.
Well, if you don't, then what the hell are you worried about?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. What am I worried about?
As much as it kills me, I definitely agree with you on the inheritance tax. I find it to be absolutely deplorable.
I do too. It makes a lot of people, it bankrupts a lot of people that can't afford to carry on with their fathers and grandfathers and people before them. That was a little tongue-in-cheek. Of course, I'm not for communism by any shape or any stretch of the imagination.
Now you're pulling my leg, right?
Yeah, and now I'm pulling your leg. But I enjoy your program today.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, bye-bye.
See what a little dose of Sam can help.
2 lines. 2 lines available both in Hillsborough, 990-9352. Of course, in particular, if you're a communist, Sam has been challenging communists to call, and they just won't. And I'm trying to help him out today.
Please call, comrade, call.
St. Petersburg, you're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Yeah, this is for Bob. I was reading a book by a gentleman, or actually an abridged collection of articles that were written for the Dearborn Independent from 1920 to 1922.
Yeah.
Written by your hero, Henry Ford Sr.
Uh-huh.
And it was called The International Jew, the World's Foremost Problem. Are you familiar with that at all, Bob?
Yes, I am. And by the way, Henry Ford is not my hero, but many of the things that Henry Ford did I find very admirable. Henry Ford was a very bizarre man, my friend, and he did write those horrible articles and caused other horrible articles to be written. At the same time, Henry Ford also did very, very marvelous and charitable and wonderful things for Jews individually. Henry Ford was a dichotomy, a paradox, a jerk, and also a brilliant man with some ideas that we would do well to separate from some of the other crap that came from him and pay attention to.
Okay, because there was one article in there about Zionism and communism, how Henry Ford...
He also was very unfavorable toward black people in much of his writings and thinkings and teachings.
Well, I'm just curious if anybody out there has read this book and what their comments are on it. I found it to be very strange.
For a number of years, when you bought a Ford automobile, they took down your name and address, and they sent you this publication that Henry Ford put out that was vehemently anti-Semitic and prejudiced and bigoted and so forth and so on for a number of years.
Right. And just that, there was one interesting article in there about Zionism and communism, how Henry Ford claimed that it was the Zionists that were actually the people that were involved in cultivating communism and Marxism in this world. And I wonder if Sam has any comments on that. And that's about it. I'll take my answer on the air. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, well, Henry Ford was not Mary Poppins, practically perfect in every way, and neither...
No, nor was Mark the guy that showed up at Temple every week either.
I don't understand what the point is of the caller on this. I'm trying to resurrect, the people.
Well, the point of the caller is that he thought that Henry Ford was my hero, and while I frequently say things like, when Henry Ford wanted to get richer, he lowered his prices, increased his quality, and gave his workers more money, and he was hoping to shoot me down on that, thinking I didn't know about Henry Ford's long, long history and tradition of anti-Semitism. Clearwater, you're on the air at 970. Whoops, let's not do that. Yes, I appreciate, speaking of people who get a little bit... Don Richards standing by the WFLA news desk.
Some heavy...
Would you give him a toot there, please?
A toot, yeah.
You're really here.
Take two toots and call me in the morning.
Sam, my guest in studio.
I am a talk show
this afternoon. Clearwater, you're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. From the Sparkling...
Before we get started here, Bob,
wait a second. Michael and I appreciate you saying good afternoon to us, but don't forget Sam.
I was referring to Sam and Michael.
Oh, I see.
Well, good afternoon to you, sir.
Bob, just the same. I have enjoyed disagreeing with your point of view for many afternoons, and I'm glad I have a chance to speak with you. Couple points I'd like to bring up.
Okay.
First of all, when we discuss George Bush, be it a Republican, be it a Democrat, or even one of these goofball commies that call your show, what I find is that regardless if you agree with his policies, George Bush is our president.
Yeah,
the
actually, I
president
like
of the United
George
States,
personally.
and to me, that means he is entitled to a certain degree of respect. Bushy-wushy is not respectful.
Actually, bushy-wushy, I've never used like bushy-wushy. I just call it bushy, but bushy-wushy is neat. Write that one down, Michael.
I'm sorry, Bob, I couldn't hear you. I was talking.
Well, that's okay. I was telling Michael to write down bushy-wushy. I've never used that. I like that.
Well, what's the one that you use?
Bushy. Just plain bushy.
Okay.
But bushy-wushy.
Can you, one point at a time, can you at least, maybe not disagree with me, but see where I'm coming from, that our president, regardless if you disagree with him or agree with him, still deserves a certain amount of respect?
Well, let me, you ask a question and I will give you an honest answer.
Okay.
And please do not be offended because we're not necessarily talking about you.
Okay.
Because you have raised a specific issue, okay?
Okay.
I am in show business, sir. I run a talk show in a medium known as broadcasting.
Right.
Most of the people who listen to this program, or I take that back, most of the people who respond in a program like this, and be it, a liberal program, and I'm sure Sam will agree when he hears what I have to say, a conservative program, frankly are not capable of dealing with what we're talking about because most people don't read the newspaper. They don't sit around and thinking about the SNL crisis and so forth and so on. Yet I've got to get good, stimulating calls on my phones. And so therefore, if it boils down to somebody calling me up and screaming that I am disrespectful to the president by calling him bushy, then I will do so.
Okay, I can understand that.
It's to keep the show going. I personally like George Bush. I don't know why. I disagree with him on almost every issue, but I think that he's probably a nice guy. I feel the same way about George Bush, by the way, that most people felt about Ronald Reagan. I disagree with him, but I like him. It's showbiz, nothing more, nothing less.
Great. To be very honest with you, I called once on your show, and you got furious because I stated just that. So I wasn't even going to approach that angle.
Well, while I may call Bushy for showbiz purposes, I do not disagree with him for showbiz purposes.
Okay.
That comes from my heart.
Fair enough. And I appreciate an honest answer.
All right.
But let's get into this a little more detail.
Okay.
Okay. You do not agree with President Bush's handling of the crisis in China.
No, I don't. I'm very, very disappointed.
Okay. With a man who was our ambassador to China, who ran the CIA, also who ran the GOP during probably its most time of crisis, if you will. Who better to know how to handle this situation but a man with the experience and the integrity and the knowledge of the country and the inner workings of the country that you and I know nothing about?
Let me give you, an honest answer to an honest question. I do a talk show. I'm just a normal guy who puts his pants on the same way you do. And by the way, I did miss the leg this morning and damn near fell down. Hopping there on one foot, trying to get my balance back.
Well, you hang in there.
When I criticize George Bush, I can do so from a very idealistic and sometimes even a naive point of view. However, I think I raise legitimate questions, and it then behooves those of you who would support George Bush, President Bush, if you will, to defend him. It's discourse. It's conversation. Bush may be right. He may be wrong. I may be right. I may be wrong, or the truth may lie somewhere in between, which is the most likely. And to simply accept what he says is wrong. I am a naive man. I know that. But I try to live a life of principle. I hope that answers it.
I think there's a Billy Joel song in there somewhere.
Probably is.
Bob Lassiter, News Radio 970, WSLA.
All righty do. Wishy, that's really neat. 13 minutes after the hour of 12 o'clock. 12 o'clock, my God.
Wait a minute, let me get this clock set. This clock is behind.
Just like the old days, you know? I mean, you get yourself into a habit, and even, nonetheless, 13 minutes after the hour, 4 o'clock. Welcome back, hour number 2. It is a Tuesday, June the 6th, 1989. Sam is in studio, hasn't tried to sell anybody any cubic zirconias or even any Capo Diamante.
Completely cleared out of that stuff, Bob, in the last hour.
You're clean now. Okay, Sam, of course, being Sam McClellan, who is our very own warrior of the weekends from 9 until noon, Saturday and Sundays, sitting here in this you do sit in my chair, don't you?
Yes, I sit in the chair.
You realize this chair does not belong to the radio station.
I know it doesn't belong to the radio station.
My personal chair. And you sit in it.
I was here when they gave CPR to the chair, when Sleewalk came down and gave it a new life, so to speak. You know.
Yeah, I'm just amazed that you sit in the chair. I'm not even going to ask if you sniff the seat. But nonetheless, Sam,
it's typical, Bob. A disgusting.
Oh, you have sniffed the seat.
It's drive time. There are people picking up their children in their cars and they're listening to this.
Oh, it's better they listen to this than some of the stuff you put out on the weekends. I mean, unbelievable.
This clock, a backwards clock. Is this something you're telling me?
You're going to mess up the guys in the morning.
I'm trying to.
They know that clock is 1 minute 13.7 seconds off.
Tough.
And so everything they do is okay. When the morning show falls apart tomorrow, don't come crying to me.
That's tough. Good morning.
Let's see. One line open in Hillsborough, but it just started to blink, so we won't even give you the numbers. North Tampa, you're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Afternoon.
Afternoon, North.
How do you like North?
Yeah, North Tampa.
Oh, okay. How do you like Mushy Bushy?
Bushy Wishy, I think, is a little better. But Mushy Bushy's not,
Mushy Bushy's kind of a double entendre, though.
Well, whatever.
Sam, I've only heard your show once before. I think you were talking about model rockets.
Yes.
Maybe that's the kind of subject you have.
I am the Texas State Altitude Champion of 1970.
Right, I heard you say that.
Yeah.
We must be about the same age. Did you ever launch one from underwater?
From underwater?
Yeah, like Polaris.
Could we talk you into launching one from underwater?
Yeah, you put the little jet X wick in there and drip paraffin in. It works beautifully.
Could I do the countdown when you launch it from underwater?
Yes.
1,999.
What prompted me to call was an involuntary guffaw when I heard you comparing, Sam, this Beijing thing with the Boston Massacre. I mean, that was just a real joke. How many people were killed in the Boston Massacre?
Well, figures were inflated, and we agree to that. Most Americans will say that we did kind of, inflate the figures there. But the circumstances are much the same. The Americans that advanced upon the public building were peaceful and were not really threatening. The British soldiers that were there.
Wait a minute. Let me.
And I might point out that the British government, the British colonial governor, did reprimand and reassign the British lieutenant who ordered the troops to fire. But the point was well made that British troops were willing to kill Americans or
in self-defense. In self-defense.
No, sir.
And
no,
let
sir.
me point out that
as I point out to you,
colonists.
As I point out to you, sir,
colonists.
It's point out to you, sir, as I say once again, the Americans who died that day in Boston presented no threat or bodily harm to the British soldiers.
Well, not according to the Redcoats, and they only killed 5 of them.
Oh, well, you can read the loser's account of the war. I prefer the winner's account of the war.
And not only that, but why was there a demonstration in Boston that day? It was because the Americans, or the colonists, they wanted
to separate from Britain for economic reasons. I mean, here you had a class of elite landowners who did it for economic reasons. All this idealistic freedom, democracy crap, this all created later.
Here we go. Left wing. Oh, yeah, it's an agrarian reform program. Give me a break with these left-wingers. I'm telling you, you're even upset with the American Revolution.
Well, no, I'm damn glad about it, but I'm getting sick and tired of hearing all this idealistic garbage about it. The fact is, it was for economic reasons.
Gentlemen, permit me to jump in here. I know that for some of us, discussions of history are fascinating, but what I try to do, since you see I have a competitor on another station where people call up and remember history, and as a general rule of thumb, we try to allow him to have that franchise. Off we go now to Sarasota. Hi, Sarah. You're on the air. Oh, pity poo. Sarasota couldn't hold on with us. So I'll give out the Hillsborough numbers 990-9352. And off it is now to Tampa. Tampa, you're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Yes, good afternoon, Bob and Sam. How you doing?
Very good, thank you.
Yes, Sam.
We will not be playing the Colonel Bogey March here today.
And one of these days it'll say Seattle. I just know in my heart.
Sam, this is a hippie, Sam.
Oh, my goodness.
Song and all, yes.
You know, there is going to be an ordinance someday banning all hippies from Pinellas and Hillsborough County. I think they'll still be in Sarasota because they won't be able to tell the difference between you and the other clowns down there at Ringling Museum. You know, those bell-bottom pants, you know, and the strange makeup on the face, you know, flowers in their hair.
Flowers in their hair.
Right.
Sam, how can you say that under the Bush administration that things have been going great when Dan Quayle calls Gorbachev a drugstore cowboy and they want to keep reviving the Cold War, basically?
It was all a part of the idea to smoke him out at NATO, really. Marlon Fitzwater today says he regrets making that statement. I don't think he regrets making that statement. I think it was all a plan. I'll be the one to make it. He's not a real public official. Remember this. He is just the mouthpiece. So.
And what about the minimum wage, Sam? Why won't the Bush administration give people a chance to earn a living, decent wage, Sam, when so many people...
Oh, give me a break about this. Yeah. What do you want to tell me here? That the Bush administration doesn't think you're worth 30 cents an hour?
Hey,
is that it? Is that the refrain? Is that
no,
is that the international?
No, Sam. What they said is not that you're not worth 30 cents an hour. They said that the entire economy would collapse, that the Reagan miracle would come to a halt. And Sam, what I can't understand is then they tell me nobody's getting a minimum wage anyway, and everybody else, the other 99.9% of the people who will get more than a 30 cent an hour increase, and it's not going to cause the economy to collapse. That's why some people are a little bit leery.
Yeah. Personally, I think it's rather silly to even play around with the minimum wage. I mean,
well, it's not silly if you're earning
cares? It. Well, you want a better job, go ahead and get one. But with the minimum wage problem, if Bush had said, I want $5 an hour, they would have said, I want $5.30 an hour, and you don't think he's worth 30 cents. If Bush said $6 an hour, they say $6.30 an hour. I mean, it's one-upmanship from the Democrats.
Well, speaking of one-upsmanship and minimum, I have to break at this particular point for our own beloved bronzed washboard of a traffic reporter. However, when I return, I'd like to pursue that with you. Hey, if it isn't a whole $3.35 an hour himself.
Little touch of sarcasm today, huh, Bob?
A little touch of sarcasm?
Getting upstaged by my buddy Sam, so you have to take it out on the traffic reporter?
Gary is such a professional. He's a thorough professional.
That is right. And I have a little Reagan flag on my lapel.
Gary, you seem a little bit testy today. What's the matter? A fox fetching last night, a little on the slim side?
I had to take the night off. You know, I was still worn out from Sonota Sasso over the weekend. But it's the weather. You know, Bob.
What do they have a 6K run in Sonota Sasso over the weekend?
Yeah. Let me ask you this, Gary, as a professional pilot up there, how many fender benders have you seen of us supposedly professional motorists? But yeah, I've never heard of a propeller bender where you were following too closely, say the other.
When the kingdom come, that will be done on earth as it is in heaven. One nation, under God, liberty, justice for all.
As most people know, of course, that's the way we begin our Friday program. If you'd like to use the Lord's Pledge on your show, It could be arranged.
I have freedom to use that. I have occasionally delved into the, into the bucket over there.
Oh, really? Keep your hands out of my bucket.
No, now Michael Serial can testify to this. There are times when even the great Lassiter goes on vacation.
Magnificent
Lassiter. Magnificent Lassiter, excuse me. And you go on vacation, and sometimes I get selected to be the pigeon of the week. I come in and have to deal with your audience. It takes a long time to brush away the loonies. The communists call your show. They don't call my show. And I will come in and I will try to give them a dose of Lassiter, something to ease the withdrawal symptoms, and I find some favorite pieces of shtick.
Thank God I go away on my vacations and don't stay at home. You will, of course, be taking a $12 a week decrease to help the national economy along this year.
No, not at all. No, not at all. I pay my taxes, which is sufficient.
I think. Are you suggesting that people in the lower income brackets don't pay taxes?
People in the lower income pay an astounding amount of taxes. In fact, the lower you get in the consumption tax area. They pay a significant chunk of their income goes towards paying.
But you don't want to give them a 30-cent an hour increase.
Incidentally, children are great taxpayers in this country. I'd like to pass that along. Children are extraordinary taxpayers. They buy Coca-Cola, jeans, movie tickets. I mean, they're great taxpayers.
Well, of course, they're not really. The children don't really pay taxes since they don't really bring income in. The taxes are still being paid by their parents.
Well, it's a trickle-down system.
I mean, I can see some little old lady sitting at home now, knitting, sipping on her elderberry wine in a condo overlooking the Gulf of Mexico. Well, she thinks it's the Gulf of Mexico. It's probably Lake Okeechobee.
Yeah.
And, from one of the rip-off real estate people. But that's nonetheless, she's sitting there and saying,
"That's right. Poor children paying too much taxes. That's Sam. I really like that Sam. He's a good man."
Here you go, ridiculing the backbone of this country.
No, I'm not ridiculing the backbone of this country. What I'm doing is I'm just pointing out how you use something that you know not to be true in order to aid and foster your cause.
Oh, now, ladies, let's talk about things that I know to be true and things that you don't know about. Last year, all the liberals were complaining that all the jobs created by Reagan were these hamburger flipper jobs. And now this year, they're saying none of them are hamburger flippers. Which is it, Bob?
Now, wait a second, Sam. The Labor Department was the organization that said most of the jobs created during the last 8 years were relatively low-paying jobs.
Not true.
It was the Reagan administration that said, no, that's not true, and besides, we don't have anybody earning minimum wage. Only a few people. It's basically some kids cutting grass and helping out at home.
The dispute was over the jobs that were created. The new jobs that were created, the vast majority of those jobs were paying something like $25,000 or more.
Really?
Yeah, that's right. They were white-collar workers. In fact,
then how is it that in Pinellas and Hillsborough counties, where, of course, a hotbed of republicanism, one would think we would have been favored with all of those high-paying jobs, the average wage in this area is a little closer to $14,000.
Well, to use a peninsula that is a tourist economy and housing as its chief way of doing business as an example of the country?
Where were all those $25,000 jobs?
Those jobs are basically in clerical jobs, administrative jobs.
Clerical jobs?
Yeah, you better believe it.
Hey.